Greetings, friends. This is Chris Batts, your host of the Law Firm Leadership Podcast. If you've been a listener, you may have heard me share of powerful women on the show. Today is no exception. Today, I spoke with a well-known, well-loved general counsel gifted in networking, leadership, and branding. We discussed how attorneys in leadership positions can drive inclusion and the many ways she supports women to advance their careers, as well as elevating women to board service, and of course, much more. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this podcast and leave a review on iTunes. We interview corporate defense, law firm leaders, partners, general counsel, and legal consultants. You are listening to episode 51 of the Law Firm Leadership Podcast.
Broadcasting from Kansas City, this is the Law Firm Leadership Podcast. In each episode, you'll receive actionable ideas and hear personal leadership stories of both men and women serving as leaders and executives in the legal industry. Enjoy a front row seat as Chris Batts speaks with general counsel, legal consultants, and law firm leaders and law partners at the top corporate defense law firms from around the United States.
Welcome to the Law Firm Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Batts with the Lion Group. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Megan Belcher, Senior Vice President, General Counsel, Corporate Secretary of Scoular in Omaha, Nebraska. Megan is a member of Scoular's senior leadership team and leads Scoular's legal as well as its brand marketing and corporate communications teams. In the 15 years preceding Scoular, Megan was a partner and associate at Hush Blackwell, and prior to that, the Vice President and Chief Counsel of Employment Law and Compliance at ConAgra Brands. Megan has held several roles for the Association of Corporate Counsel, which named her to its inaugural class of the top 10 30-somethings. Also, Ethisphere magazine named her as a top ethics and compliance officers in its annual Attorneys Who Matter listing 3 times. In addition, Inside Counsel magazine awarded Megan with its Transformative Leader Award and twice named her to its R3 100 Next Generation of Women General Counsel list. Megan received her bachelor's degree from the University of Missouri, Columbia, and her law degree from Boston College Law School. She holds a certificate in human resources management from Cornell and is a certified compliance ethics professional. Welcome, Megan, to the Law Firm Leadership Podcast. It's great to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me, Chris.
So, Megan, you're very visible and you have a wonderful reputation and renowned around your gifts of influence and mentoring. I'd love to just jump straight in around that, your passion for that, as well as sponsorship. Would you share with my listeners kind of that journey for you and what's motivated you to be that way?
Well, thanks for the generous introduction. I think my passion for mentorship and sponsorship really evolved out of the incredible mentorship and sponsorship that I received in the 20 years of my legal career, and really recognize that as a transformative catalyst for the successes that I've been able to achieve, and really had a passion for transferring that to other individuals who are coming up in the legal industry and beyond, really in the business industry as I moved in-house. I've expanded my mentorship beyond our legal team and really thought about how I could impact our business and many individuals coming up as business and legal leaders to think about how they could dream a bigger dream for their career and really prioritizing their individual development and thinking about how I could be additive for them in unleashing their full potential.
And so is that a program within Scoular?
So we have a formal mentoring program at Scoular, and I have the benefit of having 3 phenomenal mentors, 3 women who are leading in our business. And then I really focus, I'd say, external to Scoular on thinking about how I can mentor women both inside and outside the legal industry to make sure that we are promoting women and ensuring that they can reach their full potential and their career aspirations.
Yeah, so that's a great segue. Let's talk about 2014 when you started Drinks Among Friends. Can you elaborate about what that is and where that's going?
At that time, I was at ConAgra Brands, and I'd had the benefit of going through a really robust executive coaching engagement as I moved into a leadership role in our legal team. In addition, I had the privilege of participating in a women's general counsel development program that had a lot of resources, connectivity, powerful women who were supporting that. And as I assessed the impact that those programs and resources had on my career, I thought this is something that we should be bringing to the Omaha community and beyond. It was incredibly impactful. Those resources had a really big effect on my career. And I also recognized that I was coming from a place of privilege. Executive coaching engagements are a significant investment. That program is not something that everyone would have had the opportunity to participate in, and was really looking to crowdsource the resources that we had among the women in Omaha's legal community for our greater benefit. And started that with just a very simple discussion and happy hour, and it really bloomed into a full educational program that we expanded to 2 other cities, Minneapolis and Kansas City.
Would you mind sharing a little bit about the mechanics of what you're trying to do, or not necessarily what you're trying to do, but what you've done with Drinks Among Friends?
We're really trying to solve a couple different problems. So one, we're looking to drive connectivity between stakeholders in the legal community who can provide benefit to one another. No obligation connectivity between in-house lawyers and law firm lawyers, giving visibility and relationship access to lawyers who may be looking to make a move in their career or accomplish some development goal. In addition, we were looking to crowdsource resources so we could bring, I'd say, unique and interesting and impactful development opportunities and educational opportunities to our community. I think we've learned that particularly for lawyers, it's always about time. And thinking about how you can drive easier access to transformative development in people's backyards is something that can make a really significant difference for those who may not be achieving success in parity with our male counterparts. And as you think about the legal community, and if you get more practically focused about it, you can appreciate that individuals have marketing budgets, people have conference rooms, corporations have access to diversity and inclusion budgets. So if you think about it as a little bit of stone soup for women lawyers, if we come together, we have some pretty significant resources that we can leverage to bring really world-class speakers in for things like an MBA in a day, how to think about your personal brand. If you think about bringing in someone like an Anne St. Peter, who is just an incredible force in the marketing field. So leveraging both relationships and resources to have a big impact in the community and drive, I'd say, universal success for the community.
What's actually happening right now? I mean, this was a gathering environment, and now we're in the middle of a pandemic. So how's that working? And I know you're active in Omaha and maybe Minneapolis, but maybe not Kansas City at the moment.
Yeah, we've had a pretty quiet session during COVID. I think many people are just trying to keep their eyes above water. We're thinking about what we can do in calendar 21 as people have switched more comfortably to that virtual environment. And we'll be announcing some new programming at the beginning of the calendar year.
So let's pivot, and we're going to just talk about how this has evolved for you. And I'd love for you to share about this women's GC mastermind that you're doing. Would you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, thanks for asking about it. About 18 months ago, as I was a little over a year into my first general counsel opportunity, was really looking to drive a closer cohort of other women general counsel that I could leverage for benchmarking, information, resources, and just collaboration, and had developed in conjunction with some experts in the space, getting their feedback, this concept for a mastermind for a group of, let's call it a dozen women general counsel, coming from diverse companies, diverse backgrounds, diverse subject matter areas, if you think about getting that really inclusive perspective. And as I reached out to my general counsel network, it just became clear that wasn't super functional if you think about it in a live environment. We were going to be traveling quarterly, having a big annual meeting. And I think as general counsel looked at their schedules and what was realistic for them with board meetings and the like, it just wasn't a time investment that was feasible. And then when the world switched to virtual and got more comfortable with virtual, when you think about the disruption of the pandemic, I dusted off that work and started having some additional conversations. And I would say as senior leaders and C-suite leaders were looking for the right ways to have connectivity during that disruption. And I'd say the growing importance of benchmarking and information sharing as we navigated a lot of different disruptions domestically became very appealing to a wide group. And we ultimately compiled a group of 12 phenomenal women, and we're spending a year together. We're almost halfway through, and we've engaged an incredible executive coach who is partnering with all of us. And it's been one of the most exciting things that I've done in my career. So I'm delighted that we leveraged the pandemic as an opportunity and found a way to connect.
That's tremendous. And is this because of your initiative in leadership?
It was something that I created, but I think the power of it has really come together as a result of the leadership of the 12 women who are participating. And we had, I think, the real luck and privilege of being able to get a very diverse perspective at the table. And it is a perfect, I'd say, microcosm of why diversity is so magical.
So I love it. Let's again take a step forward. And I appreciate this phrase that you bring up for people in leadership roles that have power and privilege. And you are passionate and talk about the opportunity to drive inclusion. Would you speak to that with that understanding?
Thanks for asking about that. Inclusion is something that's very important to me. And I think it's becoming incredibly important to our business community as we look to 2021. As I look back on my career, some of the most important pivots that I made were as a result of someone who was in a position of power and privilege, reaching down and offering me the opportunity to be included at the table. And as I have grown in my career, I've made it a very intentional focus, and I think intentional is an important word here, to make sure that I am continuing to grow in my inclusion journey, because I don't think it's anything that is ever complete. And also to make sure that I am reaching both internally and externally to make sure that I am lifting those up from my position of power to bring others to the table and make sure that they can get that opportunity, they can get that development, and they can get that visibility as they think about what's next for them.
It's excellent. Coupled with that, you just have a passion to see women thrive and get to the top of leadership wherever they might be. And I know you have this desire to support women in any way possible. You speak about encouraging women to take a 360-degree view in advancing their career, and then this notion of women having personal boards of directors. Would you speak to all of that in this passion that you have? I so appreciate.
I think that's a really astute and particularly relevant question during COVID. For any of you that saw McKinsey's Women in Work survey, the pandemic is having an outsized impact on women in the workplace, particularly those who do a lot of what's referred to as invisible work and are trying to wear a lot of hats multi-generationally. And as I think about women ensuring that we're mitigating the impact in our leadership journeys and our ascension to the leadership ranks, I really encourage women to not just look at the single pillar of career. All of us, women, men, everyone, wear a lot of different hats in their lives and have a lot of different priorities. So I really encourage women to say 360, what are your priorities? Is it around public service? Is it around family? Is it around career? And being very diligent and data focused about what those priorities are and where they are investing their time. Separately, as I think about supporting women in getting to the leadership ranks, I've worked for many phenomenal women who have been transformative in my career, and also many phenomenal men, right? I've had the privilege of great allies in my career. And as I think about women continuing to achieve and try and reach leadership ranks in parity with men, particularly in the legal industry, it's very important that they appreciate, understand, and focus what their professional development plan, and that they are resourcing themselves appropriately. And I think that is the place where we most often fall down on the job, is resourcing ourselves. I think many times we think we have to do it ourselves, or asking for help is not the way to go. And having the right personal board of directors at the table is critical. And you need to think about who's your head of audit, Who is your head of your finance committee? Who's the head of your nominating and governance committee? Who is someone that's going to take you to dinner and give you a dinner of truth and give you the hard feedback that no one else will give you? Really taking an inclusive perspective about the human resources you need at the table to achieve against your career goals.
That's excellent. I just want to say thank you, Megan, for championing the women's cause, the voice that you have, the influence you have on LinkedIn and with so many different women who may not have that visibility, and just appreciate your leadership in that.
Well, thank you, Chris, for being a great ally for women. I love how many women you featured on your podcast. And as someone who is really at the forefront of placing individuals in leadership roles, it's exciting to think about that allyship on those front lines.
Yeah, thank you. So would love to pivot to what is on your plate today and with your roles and responsibilities at Scoular. So I almost made the mistake of the Scoular company, and I realize that now. You said there's a rebrand. So could you elaborate on your role over corporate communication, your role as a brand leader, legal, and then now you mentioned sustainability?
Yeah, so I think there's many magical things about Scoular, and one of those is that we're an agile company that I think really offers its talent the opportunity to grow and expand in lots of new ways. While at Scoular, as the general counsel, I lead our legal team worldwide that has lawyers both domestically and internationally. And then I also have the privilege of leading our brand marketing and corporate communications team. On the day we're recording this, we're having a big day today because we're launching our refreshed brand as a company, which is very exciting and has been a long and exciting journey in partnership with our senior leadership team and our board, and really an amazing cross-functional team at the company. And then we are starting our sustainability journey as a company, and really excited to be on the forefront of that, particularly as we think about the growing importance of ESG in the general counsel role, and looking forward to that journey over the upcoming 5 years, which is our goal setting period.
You mentioned ESG, which is very front of mind for most board directors and C-suite management teams. And you had mentioned to me 5 pillars. What are those 5 pillars you guys are focusing on?
Sure. We have 5 areas that are, I think, intimately connected with our business and how our customers think about their business. So we're focusing on marine stewardship, reducing our carbon footprint, health and safety, investing in our communities, and diversity and inclusion.
You can pick one or more points in there, but what excites you to be a part of the ESG initiative within Scoular?
I'll maybe talk more holistically. I think I'll use the example of the Scoular Foundation. We contribute a percentage of our PBT to our foundation every year that we focus on giving back and having impact in the communities where our employees live and work. And as I think about many of the rural communities where we operate and our ability to have big impact there, and particularly as a trustee of our foundation, that's incredibly exciting to be a part of that. It's also deeply engaging for me as an employee and a leader to work for a company who cares so much about its communities around the world. As I think about our more environmentally focused pillars through marine stewardship and carbon footprint, I think we can all appreciate the growing impact and import that we each have as individuals and as corporate operators in making sure that we're being mindful around climate impact and the like. And I'm very excited that we're going to bring the visibility to the work that we've already been undertaking as a company and really ratcheting up that work to make sure that we're doing our part as a thoughtful and mindful steward for our the various economies in which we live and work.
Hi, listeners. This is Chris Batts, legal recruiter and owner of the Lion Group. My team and I place legal and compliance talent around the United States and are known for our level of communication, speed, and strong track record. If you're an employer hiring your first attorney or first general counsel or adding talent to your corporate legal department or compliance team, we should talk. Also, if you're a corporate defense law partner or group wondering about your options for a lateral move, we should also talk. Every aspect of our process is confidential, fast, and thorough. Contact us by going to our website, findthelions.com, or you can text the word headhunter to the number 44222, and then complete the web form and we'll follow up with you shortly. Now back to the show. So Megan, I want to just revisit this thing because I continuously hear from you this passion for branding. Where did this come from? Was it involved in your life like in undergrad or in law school or when you're at ConAgra? Did it carry into your days at Hush? I'm just curious.
I think there's been an interesting thread on that throughout my life. My father was in advertising and had his own boutique agency. So it was very much
You grew up
a
on
discussion point. Yeah, and a very key theme for me growing up. In addition, I definitely have a visual and artistic side. And then obviously when you're in the big law context, you're always thinking about your marketing and your brand as you think about advancing in your career. And then I had the benefit to going to a branded food company. And that is really integral to your business success. And as you think about how you're going to grow your bottom line. And then really had the privilege of taking over and leading our brand marketing and corporate communications team at Scoular when I started there, and have really woven that into my day-to-day work. And it's just been a wonderful expansion and development opportunity for me, particularly as we've built a really incredible team at Scoular.
Thank you. Let's jump into a subject that's very front of mind for, let's say, the more tenured attorneys is board service and interacting, working with boards. My first question for you is how or where did you learn about board service? There's this interesting, I think, information gap out there for people to be educated about being on boards. Could you share with my listeners maybe some of your insights around that?
It was certainly something that came later in my career. I wasn't thinking about board service 5-10 years into either my law firm career or my in-house career. But certainly as I grew in my career and became a leader in the law department at a public company, obviously your board of directors is a really essential fulcrum for the work that you do and how you think about risk. Certainly started driving more of an awareness for me about the power and impact of that board service, and became a focus for me as I started investing in my development as a future general counsel, and how the general counsel interacts with those board roles and how they think about driving board strategy. And then started investing in places like the Center for Women in Law, participating in direct women programs, and really just getting more sophisticated on my reading and understanding about the process for getting on boards. And then as I have grown in my general counsel role at Scoular, have had the privilege of participating in board searches as we've thought about our board and thinking about the future. So really, it's been an iteration over time, and it's a role that I hope to play someday. And it's a continued focus for me in my development.
Megan, speak about Direct Women, the service that helps women get on boards.
Direct Women is an amazing 501c3 that has an incredible board of directors and set of committees that is really focused on developing and launching women lawyers into board service. I'd say their deepest power is that they have deeply influential members who are committed to the success of those who go through their board institute and who participate in their programs. And they have really done a tremendously inclusive job about offering their content and their educational resources more broadly through their webcasts and educational offerings that they've put out virtually. So an organization that has, I think, made tremendous impact both through driving those connections that really feed board service, and also ensuring that women are set up for success with the skills and the branding knowledge that they need as they think about trying to lever themselves into a board seat.
Megan, if you had a room full of women who are at that place in their career where they're thinking about getting on boards and serving, what advice would you give them?
It would be twofold. It would be intentional, and it's all about your network. So one, ensure that you have an intentional development plan to make sure that you're ready for when the opportunity comes up, which will include a really thoughtful board resume, board bio, and that you have that elevator pitch when the recruiter calls. In addition, make sure that you are thoughtfully fostering your network in a strategic way. and that you are being very data focused to recognize where you have gaps in your network and where you are filling those gaps out in strategic ways that will ensure you have the right connections that will get you visibility to those board opportunities when they arise.
Excellent. Thank you. Let's pivot. Megan, how do you define leadership?
I define leadership as bringing diverse leaders to the table to either solve complex issues or drive shareholder value in the corporate context with an inspirational and inclusive spirit. I think that is the core of what drives engagement and how you can think about driving really exceptional results with a team.
I'm going to give you a moment to share of examples of leadership or who have been examples for you, maybe heroes. Could be a moment for some shout outs, but who has helped set this example for you?
Yeah, I think I've had the benefit of having a really great and influential sponsor at every stage in my career. I had the opportunity to work with Paul Poutler at Hush Blackwell, who is just an incredible servant leader as you think about bringing that thoughtful approach to your leadership and really fostering young lawyers who come in and really don't have any skills and getting them the connectivity and the understanding, particularly as you're going through those more complex early days where you are making mistakes and you're figuring out on the fly, to going to working for Nikki Theophilus, who was the Chief Employment Counsel I worked with at ConAgra Brands, who really taught me what it was to be an in-house leader and showed me what really powerful female leadership looks like. And then really all the way to my CEO now, who is one of the most inspirational leaders that I have ever seen and who is a true ally as you think about getting a very inclusive and very diverse perspective to the table, and is a very authentic and vulnerable leader who shows me every day what great leadership looks like and has really enabled me to grow tremendously in my leadership journey over the last 3.5 years.
Megan, let's go back into that proverbial room where it's full of women that you get to speak to them and inspire them. What advice would you give them today?
I think many people look at the start of the calendar year as turning a page and a fresh start. And I think many people are either overwhelmed or feel overbooked as a result of what I'll call the additional demands of the pandemic, particularly for women. And I would just say to you, don't overcomplicate it. Commit to doing one thing. For those women that are listening to this podcast, you've committed a set of time to listening to it. Commit to doing one thing, whether it's growing your network, finding an influential mentor, developing a 90-day plan that's connected to your IDP. You don't need to overcomplicate it. Just commit to doing one thing. And 3 months from now, 9 months from now, 3 years from now, if you make that commitment to yourself, if you carve out that time in making that investment, it's going to pay off. Making an investment in yourself is the safest investment you'll ever make.
Thank you. Let's pivot to personal. And I enjoy just having kind of the last part of the episode for people to kind of relate to you. So you are a single mom with 2 daughters. Is that correct?
That's correct.
How has this year been? I think you have a new member of the family as well on top of that.
We do. We have a COVID puppy. Our longtime companion, George, who was 14 when he passed away, died. And my children were dying to have a puppy. So we picked up a puppy during COVID. It's been a real journey. So last spring, we pivoted to virtual. My children have the privilege of going to a smaller private school, and they did a phenomenal job shifting to that virtual environment. So I was very lucky and grateful. At the same time, I pivoted to work from home virtual work in March. We quickly learned that we were very agile in a virtual environment, but I was not meant to be an elementary ed teacher. So those were our 2 takeaways. It was also just, I'd say, wonderful given the frenetic pace of life, both as a leader and a mom, particularly as a single parent, to have that togetherness. And my mom quarantined with us, which was just a wonderful addition
that's
to
wonderful.
our day-to-day. Yeah. And we had a wonderful summer. We're voracious travelers, so travel looked a little different for us this year. We bought an RV, so we're traveling a little bit differently than we usually do.
So fun.
But we're finding new adventures. And then this winter, I think we're shifted to virtual now again. And I've been working from home since March. So we're just continuing to find our new normal. And I'm continuing to build my muscles of agility and flexibility.
Where'd you guys make your trips this summer or this year with the RV?
We went a couple different places. We drove to Oregon, which is our go-to summer spot. We go to the Oregon coast every year, and we took a 2-day driving trip, which was a new experience. Yeah. And we're exploring, I'd say, the Midwest. We've lived in Omaha for a long time, but had not seen Mount Rushmore. So we checked that out. And we made some trips to some great camping sites in Iowa. So we're continuing to find new adventures, and we're hoping to take a long trip after the Christmas holiday.
So fun. So every podcast, I'd like to bring up how people are consuming content, any recommendations. You had shared with me that you're an avid podcast listener. Would you share with us shows that interest you? Love to hear.
Yeah. So of course I listen to yours. So I love getting legal content.
Thank you.
Probably my favorite personal podcast is Armchair Expert, which brings a lot of different perspectives to the table. I start every day with The Daily from the New York Times, which focuses on a news issue. One of my favorite, I'd say, career and women-focused podcasts is Second Life, which is a podcast that's focused on women who are entering the second half of their careers, but happy to share my full list on LinkedIn or otherwise if helpful.
Thank you. So, Megan, last question. What is or are your superpowers?
I think my superpower is connecting with individuals who are aware of and know their own superpowers and bringing them together to solve the most complex issues, whether those issues be for my company, for my community, or for my personal relationships that I really care about. So that's my passion, and I think where I shine the most.
Megan, thank you for your time today. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Chris.
Thank you, everyone who listened to this episode of the Law Firm Leadership Podcast. If you haven't already, please take a moment and subscribe. Also, we would love your feedback. You can leave feedback in 3 easy ways. You can go to the blog post on our website. You can click Give Feedback link in the show notes on your device. And then thirdly, you can text the phrase LFL podcast to the number 44222. That's LFL PODCAST. And thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Law Firm Leadership Podcast. This podcast is for education purposes only. This content cannot be used for commercial use without written permission from the Lion Group. If you like this podcast, leave a review on iTunes.